skills, music, dance, fun, and unbeatable facial expressions. The purpose of the most beautiful deaf girl in Nigeria is aimed at promoting, advocating, and creating awareness for the rights and dignity through highlighting pressing issues and the plight of the deaf community in Nigeria.
Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will focus on emerging threats to national security under the horrifying caption of Lakurawa. Now, who are the Lakurawa and what is their pattern of operation and capabilities? Now, how in-depth is the research into their upspring and expansionist trends? And where are members of this group assembling? And are they different from Boko Haram, bandits, and ISWAP? And finally, what are the measures taken to crush the threats this unconventional armed group poses to national security? Well, as a first step, the military recently acknowledged the existence of this group and assured Nigerians that there will be no safe haven for them. Now, to x-ray these and other matters that bother on the nation's security, we'll have a panel of discussants, but not before we get to see this report put together by defense correspondent Ismail Musa.
Lakurawa, a terror group initially formed in Niger in 1997 to protect Fulani communities, evolved into a radicalized faction in northwest Nigeria, Sokoto and Kebbi states.
Troops are confronted with a new terrorist sect in the northwest, known as Lakurawa, affiliated to terrorists from the Sahel. This came as a result of the coup that took place in Niger Republic. We are going to put those terrorists at bay, and we are going to find and flush out those ones that have come in.
In 2018, community leaders in Ilela and Gudu in Sokoto State allegedly invited the group, whose origin has been traced to Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso, to assist in the fight against banditry, but later turned rebels.
They were meant to provide security against the bandits. Now, we usually say today's solution could be tomorrow's problem. Now, after providing security to some of these communities, they are now putting taxes on some of these communities and becoming a menace to us.
So far, Lakurawa imposed tax on farmers, displaced communities, killed many people, and looted properties. To combat this threat, the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Bello, and the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, were on a appraisal visit to the troubled areas to review ongoing operations, enhance joint security operations with emphasis on technology to monitor and gather intelligence.
We have overviewed the entire operation and realized that we need to harmonize our operations together. If you notice, we have Operation Hadarin Daji and Operation Wild Stroke, both within the northwest region. We have seen the need for us to harmonize those operations into one operation like we did in the northeast, where we have Operation Hadinkei. The same thing is being done now for the northwest operation. We have one unified operation. It's going to be called Operation Fansan Yama. Fansan Yama, for those of us that know, it's securing the west. Now, the intention is to ensure that we synergize all our efforts in addressing the security challenges in the Northwest. It's been their tradition for the bandits to be able to flow between the states within them. So now what we're doing is that since we're harmonizing the whole operation, they will come under one commander. And then the commander will be able to utilize all the equipment and troops together to ensure that we address this critically. And I think that's the best solution we have for it. And I can assure you, all the assets that is required to do that will be done.
Regional military efforts strengthening partnership with Cameroon, Niger, Chad, and Mali to develop a unified response to the insurgent threats across borders.
We are implementing heightened security protocols in high-risk areas and advanced technology to monitor, gather, and analyze intelligence. Increased joint operations between the military and other security forces. We have also maintained close ties with our allies to ensure that we stay ahead of those who seek to harm us.
Similarly, the media has been enjoined to be patriotic in their reportage, devoid of glorifying the criminals. In Abuja, Ismail Musa.
All right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's go ahead and introduce our guests. I would like to welcome to this program Major General Emeka Onumajuru. He is Chief of Defense Training and Operations, Defense Headquarters. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Cyril. Pleasure to be here.
Right. We're also joined tonight by Deputy Inspector General Dasuki Dambapa Galadanchi, MNI. He's DIG, Force Intelligence Department, Force Headquarters. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
Happy being here.
Well, as is the nature of this program, at some point in time, you can join in. You can join in the discussion in the studio, but when it's that time, we'll update you on the process and the procedure. We also have another guest joining us tonight via Zoom from Jos. General Jonathan Temlong is with us tonight. He is the first Commander Multinational Joint Task Force. He joins us via Zoom. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me, Cyril. Good evening.
Good evening. Well, we go straight to the issues here. Well, just at a time when Nigerians were beginning to believe that the worst is over, the state was beginning to win this war against the terrorists who have made life so difficult for Nigerians, and just as criminal gangs were being dealt with as well, in comes another threat to national security by way of another terrorist group called Lakurawa. This is worrisome to the entire Nigerian citizenry. And so let's begin to find out, how did this group come about and what brought them, and at what point did we begin to notice that there was another group that was coming together to pose a threat to the security and stability of Nigeria? Let's begin with you, General Emeka Onumajuru.
Thank you very much, Cyril. I think before I delve into that question, as always, I want to first of all acknowledge our troops and commanders in the front line, including the Northwest Theater of Operation. Acknowledge them for the hard work they are doing. And also to state that the emergence of this group does not in any way reduce the amount of progress that have been made in the Northwest Theater of Operation. Now, having said that, the Lakurawas, as earlier stated, were actually invited into Sokoto State by the district head of Bale. Around 2018, a group formed in Niger and rightly to guard against cattle rustlings. But when they were invited in, I think the mandate they had with the district head was to help them control issues of cattle rustling, help them against attacks by bandits. But along the line, as always, they turned rogue. turned rogue in the sense that those things that they promised the ballet that they are supposed to do was not what they were doing. They now got involved too in issues of cattle rustlings themselves, got involved in violent preachings, got involved in attack of security agencies, including the government vigilante services, and also sought to extend their influence. And before now, along the line, they were able to mutate in the sense that they became allies to Islamic states in Sahel, stretching from Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali. So they had quite an extensive contact with external Islamic groups. But I think the good news is that they are not as big as it sounds. From what we have, they are just about maybe 200 plus of men armed with small weapons. They are mobile with motorcycles. They engage in preaching and also seeking to recruit new members, as is always the case with new organizations of that nature. And within this year, from 2018 up to now, they have been passive and active. Passive in the sense that at times they are dormant, sleeper cells, and active when they start to challenge the status quo. But in the past 6 months, I think I would say they have been active. Active in the sense that there have been recorded encounters with the Sokoto State community guards. They have also had encounters with troops. They have also had encounters with other security agencies. So they are clearly active. And it's because they are active that it's beginning to affect the security situation in the Northwest. And we are aware they are not just the only people in the Northwest. The twin issue of banditry is also there. While banditry is localized in a different place with different motives in Zamfara, the Lukawaras are also in different places in Sokoto and also parts of Kebbi State, Arugungu area and Agu local government in Kebbi State. But when you factor the two, you find out that cumulatively they undermine the security situation. Why they might be different at the leadership levels, at the local levels in terms of rank and file, the ideologies at that level don't really count. So they all form part of a larger criminal ecosystem that needs to be taken out once and for all. Thank you.
Well, I guess with this explanation, the very first thing that will be on the lips of most Nigerians is it normal for, in this instance, a village head or a district head to invite people from another country to come into the country to perform a role without the clearance of state authorities? That's the first thing people will wonder at. If that has been so established, what has happened to the people who put this together, who took this step?
Yes, I agree with you that it's completely abnormal and also unacceptable. But then we must be clear that the issue of vigilante, proliferation of vigilante groups is almost nationwide, and we are working towards putting measures in place on how to control these vigilante groups. They are all over the place, moving from one geopolitical zone to the other, which is completely not acceptable.
All right. Well, let's come to DIG Dasuki Galadanchi.
Yes.
Well, these ones have come from across the border. Yes, there's this thing about setting up vigilante groups to assist in security operations. But these are foreign nationals who have found their way across the borders, although on invitation by some local chieftains to come in. And at the point they came into this country, there was nothing, no knowledge about their activities, at what time they became a rogue group. These are the things that people ask, that what was the time that intelligence had filtered in as to what this group could turn into?
Yeah. Thank you, Cyril, for having me. When they were invited by the traditional ruler of the valley is totally abnormal and unacceptable. But in fairness to him, he invited them to him because of the nearness where they are to the border as a solution to cattle rustling and the armed banditry. So when you delve into it, you will now find out that he did it in good faith. But unfortunately, at the end of it all, he paid the supreme price because he couldn't control them, and they eventually killed him and sought to govern the space by themselves, become like local governors, where they levy the farmers, the cattle rearers, and ban some things that are prohibited, and start asserting punishment and controlling, settling disputes and going against the bandits, but at the same time overloading it onto the communities where they found themselves. They are mobile, and they are not stationary, and they easily move around, and because they are across the border, they cross over to Niger easily, and where they find it very hot there, they cross back, so they move, and they intimidate. They carry light weapons, and as Major Emeka said, they are not very many. It was estimated that there were 200, 250, up to maybe, the 400 thereabout. And INT is already on their trail. We are trying to make sure that we locate exactly where they are, because immediately they make use of technology, the drones and many other things, that they just sense there is any iota that we know exactly the location they are. They quickly gather their things and move. They don't have much things. They use motorcycles and drones to move around. But we are on their trail, and I'm happy to let you know that the National Security Advisor, after viewing the situation, had already called in for a joint security meeting where the Chief of Defense Staff and all the service chiefs, including the Inspector General of Police and their operational officers, and the Counterterrorism Center, and the Department of State Services, and the Department of Intelligence, that is Nigeria Police, was way ahead, and the Chief of Defense Intelligence. We deliberated today for many hours as a sort of workshop or retreat, and we were able to come up with a solution. And all of us are going to work now as a team under the Chief of Defense Staff, and we have already harnessed all we have, and including the study on the Lakurawa, and very soon, inshallah, it will be a sin of the past. Not only that, all other operations in the northwest, armed banditry in Zamfara and Kebbi State and Sokoto and Katsina, all of it is now being well scrutinized, and we are looking at it objectively, and we are coming up with a very big solution that will help us to eradicate all those things.
Okay, well, while we might say that the numbers are few, we also keep an eye on the fact that monsters grow and sometimes turn hydra-headed. And for the fact that they are preaching some strange ideologies and helping to recruit citizens. We hear things like they're offering money to young Nigerians and trying to indoctrinate them with certain weird ideologies. So against that backdrop, we might not really be comfortable. Let's go over to Jos and link up with retired General Temlong. And General, what do you make of all this?
Well, thank you very much, Sril, and I want to thank the two gentlemen, the General and the DIG, who contributed earlier. What baffles me is that we don't seem to have a sense of history in this country. I remember in 1998 when the Multinational Joint Task Force was formed. We had a similar situation in Borno and Yobe states. The Fulanis were quite under intense pressure from the Nigerian rebels who were being sponsored by Libya. The Tubo Arabs, and they were called the FDR by the acronym. And so what the Nigerian government did after the request from the Fulanis was to grant them military-grade weapons to form their own militia force to defend themselves. Our border local governments in Yobe and Borno states went over to Diffa in Niger and recruited and got the services of these Fulani milice to come and protect them in their local governments, which was quite an anomaly because you had the national security apparatus on ground. You had the police, you had the DSS and the rest in the local governments. And it was condoned. So when my force came in, we had to clear them out of Nigeria. We couldn't accept that because they were not supposed to be part of it. Now we have a similar situation where a traditional ruler has gone. We were lucky to have cleared them. Now a traditional ruler went and brought them in to protect them, just like the local government chairman in those local governments did. The unfortunate thing is that even the Fulani milice themselves, they were being sustained by the Fulanis. And at the time when our force came in and defeated the rebels, the Fulanis stopped sustaining them because here was a credible force that could now provide security more than what their own militia force could do. Now here you had a militia force seated, armed, but not being catered for. So they had to leave off the land, and they started this kwanta that you see coming into Nigeria. What we advised our National Security Council then was that we should help Niger Republic to disarm this militia force. Now you have a situation where a chief in that place did that, and it looks there is something wrong with the whole system of national security itself. Either the citizens themselves don't understand what is good. If you say is to help you, what extent can you get help from an external source, an armed source to come and help you? When you are riding on a tiger and the tiger is eating other animals, you know at the end of the day, you'll be in the stomach of the tiger, and that's what happened to the chief. Because after they finished killing the other ones, they killed him. So I think it's abnormal. We must nip some of these things at the bud, and there has to be something put in place for us to make sure that all the marginal communities, you see, all these things start at the marginal communities because there is a sense of them not being catered for like the communities in the center. And so there is what we start talking about, what of the community resilience. We had talked about developing border areas for long. It has been a lip service. I know in 1992, there was a transborder cooperation workshop between Nigeria and Cameroon. I was part of that workshop, which recommended that all border communities should be developed because it was part of the system that will provide national security. If you keep our borders as communities well developed, the tendency of them taking over, going over to get people to come and defend them or to provide services for them will not be there. So I think what we would need to do is that we have to rejig our own system itself. How do we get our Nigerian population, the Nigerians, to understand the concept of nationhood, patriotism, national security, and security awareness to the extent that you know that there are certain things that you do, even if they provide respite for you immediately, they are tantamount to national security because in the end, they are going to be more injurious to national security than the immediate relief you are getting. So I think something has to be done in that respect. Okay. And I see the police, the civil defense, and the DSS taking a lead in that, but that cannot be done without the civil authority itself, because it is the responsibility of the state governors and the local government chairman to have made sure that the security of citizens in their own area is being catered for. And where this is not being done, I think that chief was responsible to somebody in a local government. I think we need to do something about these sort of things, because there is no way what they are doing now is recruiting. And this recruiting sometimes is through coercion, because that's what the terrorist does. He controls you by fear, coercion, and make sure you do. But even when they are doing what they are doing is ideological too. So once they are bringing ideology, religion into it, it becomes something more difficult, because it's going to be hydra-headed. You don't defeat an idea or a religious idea by guns. You defeat it by a superior idea. The guns are there to check and make sure they don't cross the lines. So I think there should be something seriously being done to counter some of this narrative that is going out, to get our people back from where they have been taken to the normal, to the mainstream religious line.
All right, thank you so much. We'll return to you in just a moment. But I'd just like to say that we have also been joined by Mr. Mike Ejiofor, who is a former director of the Department of State Services, DSS. Thanks for being with us tonight on this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Well, yes, you got a bit of the last speaker there, but these are the issues. It's all about the new threat to security, the Lakurawa as they are known, and their attempts to recruit young Nigerians and indoctrinate them for whatever reason. But we believe it's to destabilize Nigeria, and this is what the country has faced for quite a while. When Boko Haram reared its head, all that has gone into putting that terrorist group down, even as they linked up with other terrorist organizations in the world. And just at the time Nigeria was beginning to finally crush those terrorists, another group called Lakurawa has come in. Let's hear your comments on those.
Yeah, I must thank you for having me. Had a little hitch, that's why I came in late. But I listened to the DIG and General Taylor. I think they have virtually encapsulated the whole issue. But I must add, because I was here when they started, that this Lakurawa, they are not entirely new. Like the DIG said, it was actually formed in Niger by the former leader, military leader, Mai Nasara. And at the end of the day, when he died, the Nigerian government couldn't continue with them. And they dispersed. Like he also said, the traditional chief, because the main aim, actually, when they were formed, was to help them in this cattle rustling. And when the Nasara died, they dispersed because the Nigerian government couldn't continue with them. They were invited into Nigeria by the traditional chief in Sokoto to assist them also in the same cattle rustling, not knowing that they had more sinister intentions than meets the eye. So when eventually they started operating there, it became a threat to national security. And that was about 2018. And they came from, they were joined, the terrorists, or these Lakurawa who came in from Niger, were joined by people from Burkina Faso, Libya, Chad. And by the time the Sokoto state government had to take the initiative of non-kinetic approach to dislodge them, the ones from Niger, Burkina Faso, and all this left, leaving the Nigerian elements in Sokoto area. And they continue to operate there, but on a minor level. Don't also forget that they have attacked police stations and military formations within that time. But there was a counter-offensive that tend to dislodge them and reduce their power in that, within that period, about 2018. Now, why the resurgence? You know, during the military coup that took place in Niger, the multinational joint task force left because they withdrew. The Niger and all these 3 African countries where the coup took place withdrew from the multinational joint task force, which now gave rise to these people infiltrating and joining the kits, you know, within Sokoto and operating. I think they're operating two local governments within Sokoto and the Kebbi area. So what should we do now to ensure that just that it should not be mishandled? And I agree completely. The NSA summoning a meeting, we need joint efforts to ensure that these people are brought to under control before it escalates, just like we had the issue of Boko Haram, which was inadvertently mismanaged, and it brought us to where we are now. But since the number, although number doesn't mean anything, they are few in number, like I said, about 200 or thereabout, but we cannot say because there are 200, we should now fold our hands and look at them until they recruit people and come in thousands. Like if you hear the army, the defense people, they continue to decimate these people. 100 killed, this one killed, and they continue to multiply. So I think we should take adequate measures to ensure that this group is brought under control before it takes over the Northwest. Don't forget that in the Northwest, we also have challenges of banditry and all this. So if we allow this thing to join, it becomes a problem.
Well, in addition to the discussions, we have other reports as well. Let's get to see this report from Sokoto.
Banditry in the Northwest dates back to 2011, reportedly stemming from Haida-Farmer conflicts. Over time, the situation worsened that saw the emergence of bandits, kidnappers, and other criminal elements whose activities resulted in the killings of innocent people, displacement of many villages, posing a major setback. 8 years down the line, another terror group popularly known as La Krawa sprang up, initially under the pretense of protecting the locals against bandits, that however end up unleashing mayhem in these areas. It was gathered that most of the members of the non-state actors are from Sahelian countries of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Benin, operating along Nigeria-Niger international borders. In Sokoto State, they reportedly operate in many communities cutting across Binji, Gudu, Ilela, Silami, and Tangaza local government areas. The Lakurawa are for long in the possession of sophisticated weapons, which they use to perpetrate their nefarious activities and silence any form of resistance.
They are combination of different criminal interest group that came in to destabilize not only the border communities, but rather to destabilize Nigeria. And I have the belief, and I do believe, that they are coming at the wrong time.
La Kurawa and the bandits have so many things in common, in terms of antagonizing the people, in terms of stealing the livestock, in terms of destruction, and so on and so forth. So that's why the two don't stay in one place. They are more armed than the bandits, and therefore when the bandits see them, they run away.
Animals rustling, compulsory payment of levies, abduction of women and children, and other forms of atrocities in the communities are the order of the day, according to some of the residents. Traditional rulers in the areas call for deployment of more troops to combat activities of the insurgents.
I
call on Chief of Army Staff to deploy more troops to restore peace in the area.
One is fully aware, one is taking drastic measures in collaboration with the force headquarters Abuja to see how we can curb this group.
We are working to halt the activities of this illicit group before the situation gets out of hand.
More robust and elaborate operation is urgently needed in collaboration with the international community to tackle the security threat for peace and sustainable development of the country and the Sahel region. From Sokoto, Bashir Ibrahim Nababa.
And our next report comes from Gusau.
Has been suffering from terrorist groups for over a decade. The emergence of a new one known as Lakurawa in neighboring Kebbi and Sokoto states is seen as a serious threat.
Whatever affects Sokoto State, it affects Zamfara State. Whatever affects Kebbi State, affects Zamfara State. Because we have a lot of things in common.
In Zamfara, we are still having security challenges, and there is another front now open in Kebbi and Sokoto. This is a great concern.
Zamfara State need to be very strategically ready, because this menace that has emanated in Sokoto and Kebbi has a high tendency of escalating.
This development, according to the respondents, has significant implications for the state.
There is a strong possibility that this group may likely have a network connection, and at the end of the day maybe regroup and form a one single network with this armed bandits group, because their philosophy, their objective might look almost similar.
By fostering synergy, it is believed that the spread of terrorism can be prevented in Zamfara State for safety of lives and property of the people.
There's collaboration amongst the government of Sokoto State, government of Kebbi State, and government of Zamfara State. They need to come together, identify the nature of the problem, the extent of its danger, and come up with a common position that will address the issue holistically. What government at all levels should do is to ensure that the borders are secured.
We have to strengthen our intelligence. Not only strengthening the intelligence, but every intelligence must be accompanied with action.
As the situation develops, residents and other concerned citizens await a decisive response from authorities to prevent escalation of violence and instability in not only Zamfara State, but the Northwest region as a whole. In Gusau, Halil Muhammad.
Well, back here in the studio, we've heard from the discussions and some of the two reports we've had so far about being in small numbers but carrying sophisticated weapons. And the question has always been, how do they access these weapons? Was it through bringing them across the borders or sourcing them locally? Because Nigerians always wonder, when these groups start up, you find out that some of them are brandishing weapons that you find with state actors. Sometimes, in some cases, there are stories and reports that these terrorists are even carrying superior weapons. General.
Thank you very much. I think in terms of the sources of arms for these groups, you don't need to look too far, because the Lakoras themselves actually control illegal arms trafficking network from the Sokoto-Kebbi border area up to Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. And that is actually one of their sources of income. And these are the problems you have when you have failed states like in Libya that couldn't control their arms, and there were a lot of arms trafficking. So most of the arms are actually smuggled into the country. You can also not completely rule out the local arms manufactured within the countries. Blacksmiths have been known to produce some arms. And of course, there could also be one or two weapons that have been lost by the military and security agencies in terms of encounters with various groups. And these arms also find their ways into wrong hands. So the sources are actually multifaceted. But I think the good news is that the national control on small arms and ammunition is also doing a lot to mop up these arms. And also the troops in all the theaters of operations are also mopping out the arms. And at the end of the day, it is properly handled to the national center and they are destroyed. So getting control of the production of small arms and light weapons definitely is one of the solutions to the problem. The more we get rid of these arms in the society, the less chance of it falling into bad hands. So that is one of the main strategies we are working on towards addressing the threat.
Well, DIG, with the manner in which they operate, taking sometimes vulnerable citizens, especially young people who have little or nothing to fall back on, indoctrinating them with certain weird concepts. What have security agencies and security authorities been able to do by way of sensitizing those areas where they operate mostly, and those places where the young people are prone to being taken in by whatever it is these terrorists are preaching?
Thank you, sir. The meeting we held today, it was identified that non-kinetic measure will be the best approach to make sure that we disseminate and degrade the Lakurawas and make sure that we send them into oblivion and non-existence. Not only reactive by the troops going after them, but equally by holding meetings, talking to the communities, and using the advantage of social media and using all the arsenals we have in terms of sensitization and awareness campaign to make sure that they don't gain trend and entrench themselves. They came in smaller numbers, you have said. We shouldn't look at the number, but we should look at the threat. No small threat. Any threat is a threat, and it's a threat to national security. And the good news, as I told you today, the NSA had taken the bold step. We are all there, all the service chiefs were there, and we had over 7 hours deliberations and brainstorm on the same Lakura issue. And I'm assuring you that we are all going to work as a team, collaboratively, in terms of using the kinetic measures and the non-kinetic measures. It has been discussed extensively, and very soon you will see the result. Everything has been anchored by the Chief of Defense Staff. He is operationally in charge of the manpower, the equipment, and the tactics, and equally the overall head of the theater of operation. So I'm assuring you that we are using all the strategies available. Mostly non-kinetic measures will be employed, apart from the tactical measures that will actually be used to combat this national threat.
Well, let me go back to Jos and link up with General Timlong. It's this question of the non-kinetic resources that we're talking about here, in tackling this menace. And some can easily point to what's been going on with the experience with Boko Haram and these others. And usually the question is, why treat groups like this with kid gloves? I know you'd say some of the people they recruit are innocent and they do not know any better. But when it comes to taking on the hardened terrorists themselves, why should anybody bother about, non-kinetic efforts? Shouldn't, as most people would say, shouldn't we just go and take them down? Because someone who sold his soul to the devil, as they say, there's no way you can bring them back. And for instance, we've seen cases with Boko Haram where people who had recounted their terrorist activities and were being rehabilitated had turned around to be a source of information for the terrorists who are still very much active.
Well, thank you very much, Cyril. I think the average person will think that way too. But before I answer your question, I think I want to comment a little on what the DIG said. That if the NSA called a meeting, had a meeting, it's about 7 hours brainstorming with the CDS, service chiefs, IG police, and the heads of some of the heads of the security. That's talking about the kinetic arm of government that we use. That's the element of power that the government has, which is a kinetic element. Now, is there going to be any meeting with the governors in those areas, the local government chairman and the rest, or you cascade it when the NSA sit down with the governors to come up with a comprehensive strategy of the non-kinetic or the soft power elements, components that will now be used to complement the hard power element, the kinetic power element. I think that's always a gap in that lacuna, because the problem you have is that the governors work at cross processes with what the armed forces and the security agencies are doing. We saw a typical example in Katsina and Zamfara and the rest, when the security agencies were busy fighting, the next minute where the terrorists came in with their guns, hung around them into government houses, having been invited by the government and the rest. I think that there is a problem there. So there has to be the building of the capacity of those who are running those areas, because they have a responsibility. They are the state, they are the chief security officers of their places. And what the armed forces and the security officers are doing is providing military aid assistance to them, for them to be able to regain control over their areas, to bring the situation under control for them, for civil administration to function. And so that synergy must be there. But for them to know, they must be able to be brought in and even probably, let me say, build their capacity on how to deal with this set of problems. Now, going to your other segment of the question is that, look, the armed forces operate under the rules, the laws of war. There's a humanitarian law too, and the rest. And the first thing in the defense policy of this country is that once you deploy troops, they are supposed to protect the civilians. Now, what you have, and that's why it's called complex. It's a situation where it's asymmetric. There is no symmetry. The Lakurawas are living with the civilians. They brought them there. They were staying, some of them, they are probably in the palace. Now they are recruiting. So you don't have them having a uniform and having a no man's land between you and them, that when you cross this place, that's the Lakurawas. And that means you can fire and kill them, because anybody in that area is an enemy. But that's not the case. They are within ASEAN. So what do you want to do with your citizens? Do you want to kill them, those who have been, indoctrinated or recruited? No, you want to get back your citizens. It's not your aim to kill your citizens. But those who fire or fight against you, you give them back. So that's what you are. The rules of engagements are very clear, because if you cross those lines, the international community and everybody, in fact, you have these people start shouting every day human rights. They forget too that those soldiers there, the policemen, the DSS and all whatnot, have rights too to life. They have human rights too. And so if these people are killing them, they don't talk about them. They talk about when the armed forces or the policemen and the rest kill those terrorists and start shouting human rights, human rights. So I think there's something wrong. We have to look at it in a very serious, and because some of these people are being paid by outside forces. So those who pays them dictates the tune. But they must look at the country first, is that the soldier that is sent out there, the policeman, the DSS, civil defense staff, has right to life too, just like those people there. They have families who are looking up to them, and they have relations, and they are Nigerians soldiers who have been sent out to defend us. So they have their right to life too. So I think what we need to do is that to go after the kingpins. That's what you see when they get the kingpins, they don't leave them, they finish them. You look at the leadership, see what you can do with the leadership. You even categorize them. There are those who are peripheral. So there are those who are core, and those core are the ones that you hold them and start probably taking them to courts and the rest. But those who are in the peripheral, those who have been forced into following them, taking arms, or just being recruited as normal, because in Nigeria today, once you give any amount of money to these boys, they'll follow you. So those ones can actually be looked after to become good citizens again. But as you said, those of them who come back again, it appears that they are not likely to be good citizens again.
All right, back here, Mr. Banky Jofo. Well, they live amongst the people mostly, and for those who have permeated the ranks of the villagers and the citizens in those areas where they operate, it would be extremely difficult to get the people to report to authorities. And so sometimes in intelligence gathering, let's just take us through how you get through of people who, in this case, are being lured with money, especially given the economic situation in the country. Someone promises to give you an amount of money that you have never held before and not likely to ever hold.
Yeah, you see, we're not discussing only the issue of these terrorist groups now. There are a lot of ungoverned spaces in those areas. And the result is lack of governance at the grassroots level. At the grassroots level, you hear the local government chairman is supposed to be the chief security officer of that local government. But what most of them do is at the end of the month, they go to the state capital, collect their allocation, and you will not see them in those areas. So who would the people complain to? And the security agencies on their own part, there's no leadership, because if the chief security officer is not there, who are you going to complain to? The populace are illiterates. They are not conscious, they are not security conscious. They don't know the difference between the terrorist groups and the government. In fact, the terrorist group is now closer to the people, and they will act out of fear, since government presence is virtually non-existent. Not for any reason. Where is this police strength, manpower, to cover those areas? Would the military on their own go to that place to station themselves in that place? So there is this gap that must be filled in terms of governance between the leaders and the led. And we need to also sensitize the communities. Like you said, people are hungry. So any little opportunity they have in terms of making money, they think of today. How do we survive today and not tomorrow? And these people will readily come to hand and easily recruit these people. But we cannot continue like that. Government must show presence within those areas.
Now, in the matter of stemming the flow of light weapons into the country, a lot has been said to be done about those. And how successful have these efforts been? Yes, with the insecurity in the whole of the region, you find that the movement of light weapons has been a bit of a challenge to stem. But efforts are on, but how successful have they been over time?
Thank you very much. Before I go into the issue of measuring the success rate of various programs aimed at curtailing the smuggling of weapons and other small arms, I want to weigh in into the discourse on both the kinetic and non-kinetic. Now, we need to put it clear that there is massive kinetic operations going on in the Northwest. So when we talk about non-kinetic, it doesn't mean that the kinetic aspect is reduced. No, the kinetic aspect is actually in the increase. And the Chief of Defense Staff was able to look at the entire challenges in the Northwest and creating a new theater of operation. I'm sure you've heard of Operation Fasa and Yama. He did talk about it. Just modeled after what is happening in the Northeast. The whole idea is to concentrate the entire kinetic operations into a theater command to increase the level of resources, both manpower and equipment, increase command and control, increase the force posture to be able to tackle this. Now the question is, after the kinetic operations, what happens? That is where the non-kinetic now comes in, because the non-kinetics they are more enduring in the sense that they go to the root cause of the problem. We talk of the radicalization, talk of community engagements, talk of disarmament. These are long-term solutions. But what the kinetic does is to first make sure that the government is on the upper level. The government have subdued these people militarily and now giving those who need a chance to peacefully surrender and transit. So the kinetic operations are ongoing and much more is being planned as regards the current challenge we have. And I'm sure in the next few weeks, you will see the impact of the operation that has been planned. Now, in terms of the success rate for various programs aimed at tackling proliferation of small arms and live weapons, it's important to understand that in itself it's a global challenge. It's not limited to Nigeria alone. It's a transnational crime. And because it's a global challenge, the efforts are mostly at both national and multilateral level to try to stem these processes. In Nigeria, the Small Arms Commission, they have recorded quite some successes. Our troops in the front line have been able to recover several quantities of arms and ammunition. But then the problem is not over, because as you're recovering, more are coming. And the solution is looking at the border security. As long as the borders are porous, as long as people moving through and out, then you have these weapons coming in. So much efforts will need to be done towards ensuring that our borders are secure. A lot of countries devote a lot of resources in making sure that the borders are secure. So we must be able to work towards having a safe and secure border. Only when we do that, we'll now be able to start reducing the inflow of small arms and live weapons. And not just small arms and live weapons, all other forms of transnational threats, drugs, human smuggling, all that will stop as long as our borders remain secure. Now, within us, all the arms are not just coming through the borders. I did talk about blacksmiths. I did talk about arms stolen from various government armories. Those are also challenges. So we need to also look at how all the security agencies ensure that people are accountable to weapons placed under their care, ensure that arms and armories are secure and difficult for adversaries to break into. And then the blacksmiths, how do we regulate them? A lot of ammunitions are produced locally. They look crude, but they are also beginning to refine the process. I'm sure a school of thought had it that, why can't we even get these people, gather them all together and see how they can aid the local production of these equipments? Why must they remain as illegal operators? But then documenting them and making that process happen are all works in progress, which we'll hope to continue to refine until we'll find a better solution. Thank you.
All right, at this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, hopefully the phone lines will be open. It means you can join in the conversation in the studio. And we would also have another report that speaks to the issue and more discussions on stemming this tide, putting down these terrorists, and making Nigeria secure. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree. We sway in colors, we turn dark into light. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we have more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, we are Nigeria. Strengthened in unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, we are Nigeria. Together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. It's all about checkmating the resurgence of terrorism in the Northwest. And here we're focusing on this new group called the Lakurawa and how to rout them out of Nigeria's system. This segment here is when the phone lines are open, which means you can get to join the conversation in the studio. The numbers to call will be on your screen. We advise you take advantage of those numbers and call in. And we always remind you every Tuesday when the phone lines are open, if you're calling in and your call gets through, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to go straight to the point, keep it short and simple so that others, many others, can also get on the platform and air their views. So we'll start up this segment with one report from Jigawa.
According to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, NBS, Jigawa State has an estimated population of over 7 million people, and of this number, youth take the highest percentage. Against this backdrop, on assumption of office, Governor Umar Namadi established Youth Empowerment and Employment Agency saddled with the responsibility of creating employment and empowering youth for them to be productive and guard against restiveness. This category of youth enjoy the support of Youth Empowerment Agency, who give them working capital and tools to not only be self-reliant but to also generate employment. Meanwhile, over 200,000 youth who are not graduates have been empowered. Security experts and the academia says national security is now the business of every Nigerian citizen. The experts advocated that in the 21st century of today, everyone should be involved in intelligence gathering and sharing information to relevant security agencies by reporting any suspicious movement and activities in their respective communities.
And one of the things we are doing, town hall security meetings. Town hall security meetings with all the border community areas in the states. And part of what we're also doing there is to ensure that people are enlightened, people are educated, people know their worth, why that they are living within that border areas.
Security agencies have been really doing well, but it is not enough at this point because the challenges are too enormous and too complex. It requires the support of stakeholders. These stakeholders are from horizontal angle and the vertical angle of our society. I mean federal and state, as well as all other stakeholders, including you and I, including the traditional rulers, the students, the community leaders, and the rest of them. They have to come together and ensure that we support the current war against militia, as well as non-state actors.
We are having minimal security issue in Jigawa State because the government engaged youths.
The security also need the cooperation of civil populace in ensuring that the borders are protected and secured, likewise the entire state, from the criminal activities of non-state actors. In Dutse, Awal Muhammad Kazauri.
Well, back here in the studio, the phone lines are open, and we expect those calls to come through as we discuss the issue of securing the Northwest and routing the terrorists who are again at it, threatening the peace of Nigeria. A lot has been said about how the use of non-state actors can backfire. And here I'm referring to the question of vigilantes. And this is going to the DIG, the use of vigilantes, while some have argued that it's necessary to involve at least the people in strategies to secure their area. Care must be taken, extra care must be taken to determine who gets recruited into vigilantes. And a lot of Nigerians have also called for a review of the whole concept to ensure that you're not in any way bringing people in who will now turn around and provide intelligence to terrorists and criminals.
Thank you, Cyril. Before I go into this, I want to go back to what Brigadier General Temlong had talked about, the non-kinetic issues. In that strategic retreat, all issues had been discussed widely, and all those gaps had been identified, and measures to strengthen them had been identified too, and holistic approach is being passioned out, and very soon you will see results. So I'm not in a position to disclose the strategy that was discussed, but it's a very good headway that the NSA has taken a very bold step in doing this thing, and he needs to be commended for that. Because I think the key is united we stand, divided we fall. Working as a team is the key. And Nigeria is a country, and I believe we have the innate ability to solve all the issues, not only issue of Lakra, but issue of armed banditry, kidnapping, cattle rustling, and all the rest. In not only Northwest, but all the geopolitical zones in this country. And a lot of things have been done, and we're going to, we don't need to discuss the strategy, but a lot of things are ongoing currently. It's work in progress, and I'm assuring you that as you see us working together now, you have been seeing the results. But it's only, I know there is social media, but miscommunication, misinformation, and other things. But very soon, we are winning the war, and I'm assuring Nigerians that we are going to be sleeping with our two eyes closed, and things will get better, development will usher in. Now, getting back to your question about the vigilante, with the advent of community policing, we have what we call vigilante support officers. In each divisional headquarters police station, we have a BSO, that is vigilante support officer, whose responsibility is to now identify those that were earmarked to be part of a vigilante in that division. They will be profiled, they will be identified. With the advent of GSM, their GSM number will be taken, there will be a guarantor, photographs will be there, so that it's not every Jack and Harry that is recruited into vigilante. And at the same time, if you look at the Northeast, the military has taken it, we call it civilian JTF. The police and the DSS, that is MPF and DSS, were saddled with the profiling of those that are supposed to be members, and they were now incorporated into their each area of responsibility because of local knowledge, that is issue of language, knowing the terrain, knowing how to communicate, knowing norms and values. Finally, the good news is part of the strategy discussed is this issue of vigilante, where they will be harmonized and normalized. Again, vigilantes cannot work in isolation. All vigilantes, the way it is operated is that they must be government agent among them before they can be operating. Example, now you have 10 vigilantes, then there must be 2 or 3 policemen or 2 soldiers with 1 policeman, so that everything will follow under the rule of law and we follow it as it is spelled out.
Right, our first call is coming through at this point in time. We have Abubakar who's calling in from Abuja. Hello, Abubakar.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir. Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. This is Abdul Fatai Ajao calling from Abuja here.
Oh, okay. It's Abdul Fatai, not Abubakar, right?
I greet everybody in the studio there, and I greet our gallant officer. So I pray that God Almighty will continue to be with them to win the war. So what I want to contribute is Nigeria. Honestly, Nigeria is very big, and now we have a lot of borders surrounding Nigeria. If I don't mistake, Nigeria has a border over 300 borders, close to 400 borders surrounding Nigeria. What our security agency they are doing about of this, most especially the immigration officials. They're supposed to be in this studio this night, so we can know exactly what are they doing to that kind of the situation when the weapon is flowing around the corridor. And these people, they are human beings. They are not flowing. They are not flying from heaven. So why they can't get all these things? It's not a matter of today itself. It's something it's supposed to have a processing since they can find a solution. Because we can't continue like this as a country, as a nation. We want to develop. See the population of Nigeria, and now they need to come together, including police, custom, immigration officer, civil defense corps. Let them do their work very well. Let the authorities supporting them. Let people that are being charged. Let them be accountable. Let them be accountability. Let's support all the people they are facing these people, because we always see here. Even I have some people who wanted to join the security work, but the way they are treating all the people they are there, honestly, they are feared to join. As a patriotic Nigeria, even me by myself, I like to join the security, but the way we are seeing the way that they are treating our boys, our people they are there, so it makes the people fear. Let them be accountable. So I just pray for Nigeria that we come out from this, and now Nigeria will bounce back again, and God Almighty will bless Nigeria. Thank you so much, NTA, for this opportunity you are giving me. My name is Abu Fatai Ajao from Abuja. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Abdul Fatai Ajao, calling in from Abuja. Yes. Well, let's go back to Jos one more time. And General Temlong, you followed the trend. And of course, you heard the very first caller on this program, what he said about how these issues can be nipped in the bud. What are your thoughts? Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Cyril. I think one of the things that we must understand in the operations that are going on is that we are fighting an asymmetric war. And fighting an asymmetric war, kinetic action cannot win it. In fact, kinetic action contributes less than 50% of it to win it. The most important aspect in fighting an asymmetric warfare is the soft power component. And Ejiofor really brought it out rightly, because our crisis is the crisis of governance in this country. And once you have the crisis of governance, it is those things that actually give room to what triggers of the crisis and create the room for these non-state actors to operate freely. Now, the border situation the gentleman was talking about, I thought he was trying to talk about 3,000 crossing points, not 300 borders or 3,000 borders, you know. I think he probably is talking about crossing points. Personally, I operated a lot along the whole of the northern borders, the whole of it, since I was a captain until I left service. So I know every spot in that area. It's not possible for you to police those borders because the terrain is such that even on motorcycles, camels, cows, they just roam around and move around, and sometimes they carry all those weapons along on those with the cows or camels. In fact, when you go to certain areas in the night, they don't sleep. You hear vehicles and motorcycles moving across. That's when the business of smuggling starts and they don't follow road. They just drive across. They have some special vehicles that they make. In those days, before the advent of the Hilux vehicles, their Peugeot vehicles were quite high. They raised the shocks to the extent that you could see them almost like Hiluxes. And so they could drive across those things. So the borders themselves are something that has to be done. And these are issues of governance. For us to see how do we secure our borders. And I talked about the development of the border communities. I talked about too, you know, security awareness for our citizens. If they know what to do and what to report, and is there going to be secrecy? Because if you report, say, this person, you suspect him, and tomorrow they come and wipe the whole of your family because they want to tell them, the person that, look, this is the man that reported them. So that aspect of trust, too, is a problem.
Well, General, let me just ask you to pause a while here and see if we can get in this call from Binta, calling in from Abuja. Hello, Binta, go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, everyone in the studio. I greet all our gallant men in the studio. And my name is Binta Suleiman. I must applaud our officers. And for the first time in the history of fighting insurgents, we have seen a synergy. There's a synergy amongst the Air Force, the Army, the police. We applaud that. Nigerians applaud it because it is a way forward. That is the only way we can achieve results, positive results. We appreciate this gesture. And Nigerians are beginning to have confidence now. There is confidence in fighting insurgency, and there's confidence that we are going to yield results for the first time. Some of us are beginning to sleep with our eyes closed. But in the core north there, northwest, sometimes these people, we know that they have been recruiting kids, young guys, youths, and everything. But I want to tell you today that women are involved. They shifted from youths and men to women. We have seen on social media where women have been caught with one thing or the other. And any business that we women do, we make sure that we do it very well. So please, I want our agents to put eye on women. Forget about wearing the hijab and according to that side, the way we dress is hijab and everything. No. Don't trust everybody in hijab. Those are the same kind of people that were arrested with so many different kinds of ammunition. Yada. They are the ones that take food to them. They take, women now, we are very secretive. We can keep secret forever and ever. But for a woman to be caught, that means the security agents are working. We are very happy. We are very happy in Nigeria. May God give you the power to overcome this or bring it to minimum. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. God bless you.
All right. Thank you, Binta Suleiman from Abuja. Well, General, yes, you'll just take up from where you left off.
Thank you. So we're talking about given the information system myself, and then the vigilante issues. Now, do you have a way of sanctioning them? Even if you put policemen or soldiers, one or two with them, what are the sanctions? A soldier is subject to the Armed Forces Law. A policeman is subject to the service laws of the Police Act and the rest. And so how do you sanction the vigilantes? And you need to, the cooperation of the local community, and they have their own way of sanctioning them. So it's quite a tricky thing and dicey. The problem is that the community itself will want to be protected, especially if it is a terrorized community. And so even if for any reason they get any harm from the terrorists who are running or escaping or killed one, they won't hand it over because they want to use it for their thing. And later on, these are the weapons that we use against those community people. So there is a problem of getting the vigilante itself properly organized. But I think the bottom line is that for Nigerians to take the bull by the horn is that we are grossly under police, which we can't hide that one. We are greatly under police. Nigeria must open its doors and recruit more and more policemen that are well trained, those that will be capable of carrying and policing this country to the extent that we will have what you have a response time, that if you say you need a 5 minutes response time, you give the policemen the resources, the wherewithal, and the personnel to be able to do that. And where they fail, you sanction them. But where you do not do that, you cannot hold them responsible. So we need to recruit massively, over 3 or 4 times the number of policemen that we have now. Even if you bring the state police you're talking about, it's going to be worse than what the vigilantes are doing, because you are going to create more serious national security crisis. What you need to do is to increase the numbers of policemen and increase the technology which will act as a force multiplier for them. But you need more boots on ground. Okay. I'll tell you, in my own community today, there is only one policeman policing my community. And there is only one civil defense staff policing my community. It's magic for them to police that place. It's impossible. It's impossible. And we will keep saying that they are not doing their work. Let's recruit them massively.
Right. Thank you, General. Let's go back to the phones now. We have a caller from Sokoto, Mohammed. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Cyril, and all the participants of your program.
Good evening.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, please, I want to take on what the first caller has built on. I am surprised in Nigeria, where you're having security architecture without having the other paramilitary inside the national security architecture. You will be seeing presidency having meeting with all the national security, the army, the police, as the service chiefs, but customs, immigration, other paramilitary agencies are being left out as security architecture. And then even the person from Jos is talking about the border community, enhancing border security, and then you are not seeing any input from customs and other immigration. I think there is a need for serious rejigging of the paramilitary. Let them be part of let Nigerians see them as the part of the security architecture. Let them be partaking in what the army are doing, because when you're talking about border security, and this problem is lot of it are at the border areas, and then customs are being left out in the formation of the security. I think there is something need to be done there. That's my take. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Mohammed from Sokoto. Thank you. Well, We're back here in the studio, and Mr. Mike Ejiofor, this is the trend we're going in now. Someone said, watch out for those who, watch out for the women. They're not immune from these things, and increasingly we're seeing more women involved in terrorist activity and criminality generally. So many suggestions are coming up, but I want to stick to the one with the vigilante groups. And you had General Tim Long talk about how do you manage them. But let's take this call in, and then we'll return to you. Yes, we have a caller from Edo, Sadauna, calling in from Edo State. Hello, Sadauna, go ahead.
Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
So it's a pleasure being part of the program. I just want to make some things very clear. The military personnel there, I doff my heart for them. They are very up to the challenge of putting away all these terrorists and criminals. Just like the way they did in the 60s during the time they went to Congo to flush out Che Guevara. But what is amazing now is that if they know the number of these people, they know that it was a gentleman's agreement entered between a community, the leadership of a community, any class of a community. All of a sudden, what went wrong? All of a sudden, what went wrong? There is something that we are not being told, and that thing is somebody is using the state power, knowing what the military can do, to pay back. We all are explaining what our governance is. But in the first place, if there was no threat, if there was no gentleman's agreement between these two parties, it's not me and you talking like friends. These people have some blood relationship. And they saw something very, very innate in them that they want to protect. And they have to. All of a sudden, if somebody is not paying or doing what is right, wanting to take advantage of an opportunity that I'm in position now, I can deal with you. I do not need you again. This money I'm giving to you, I want to stop it. It happens in Nigeria. That's why you see the Labour Party are always wanting to go to strike, because government will not do what it's supposed to do. Pay minimum wage is problem. Now, they will kill many people. Life itself, is it meaningful to the military? Once you are branded a terrorist, the military will flush, go there, put the jab boot on the ground, and then the next thing is
all right. Okay, Sadauna, well, you made your point, and we're back here in the studio now.
Yeah,
Yes.
Following from what General Tenlong said, vigilantes are members of the society. There is a complete breakdown of traditional and cultural values. If you take some states, Zamfara for instance, traditional rulers have been arrested as accomplices to the terrorists. Prior to the advent of this modern governance, we relied more on the traditional rulers as custodians of our traditions and culture and the enforcement of law and order. But these days, they are not that way. So if you rely on traditional ruler to give you members of the vigilante, who also is a suspected criminal, what result are you going to get? I agree that vigilantes are very, very critical in both intelligence gathering and assisting the police. They are very, very important. But like we also said, they need to be profiled so that you don't, at the end of the day, compound your problem by bringing them in. They must work under the control and supervision of the police. And that brings me to another issue that General Tenlong talked about. Incidentally, we appeared on several TV programs. For me, I believe that the creation of state police will assist us. But people are expressing fears that it will be abused. And I ask, is the present Nigerian police not being abused? We are Nigerians. There is abuse everywhere. Take, for instance, the issue of State Independent Electoral Commission. In a state, there's conduct of election. And at the end of the day, the party in power in that state wins all the seats in the local government. But I can tell you that there's a difference between the functions of the state police and the State Independent Electoral Commission. We need to get the people involved. They know the community. A situation where you take somebody from Sokoto and post to Bayelsa, for instance, or Rivers, or take somebody from Rivers or Bayelsa and post to Sokoto. Two extremes. You are posting somebody from desert into water, and you are posting somebody into water, from water to the desert. One, you have cultural differences, religious differences. For them to have confidence, to even relate with the security becomes a problem, and they cannot function effectively. So I believe that for us to emerge from these threats, we need to localize the police and give them definite functions. There are federal offenses, there are state offenses. You draw a line, this is what you do. Police must, the federal police must also be involved in looking at some criminal activities, quite distinct from maybe misdemeanors or simple offenses that can be handed over to the Nigerian police. We still need them.
Well, as we begin to wind down, I'd like us to look at other angles of it. Well, we have, okay, let's take this call first. We have Barnabas calling in from Eula. Barnabas, go ahead.
Eula. Good morning. My name is Barnabas. I'm calling from Yola. I am happy to be the first person that will talk from the northeast part of the country today, and I'm happy to be awake by now to listen to this program for the first time. I want to thank the gallant officers and the creator of this program. They are doing very, very well. The issue of what we have in this country, the insecurity of this problem, is nothing rather than a societal problem and inequity in governance. 95% of what is happening in this country, the youth constitute 95% of the insecurity that is happening in this country. And there is non-equity in the governance. Youth in this country have lost confidence in the governance, and I have sit down, I have been a graduate. I'm talking from the bitter heart because I have been going through, I have sit among so many people and I have listened to views. Securities are up on their games. The security apparatus are doing very, very well. There are countries, in fact, that they have a low capacity in the security apparatus where the citizens sleep peacefully. Why? Because everybody is giving its own end. I'm talking to you, I am one of it, and I will tell you the fact that there are so many people that graduated for more than 20 years. 20 years in this country. And each year in, year out, quarterly, people have been going to school. The school has been so very well. They are coming out jobless. If you don't have a godfather, if you don't have anybody, you will not be recruited, you will not be employed. So people are taking so many things out of bitterness to commit so many things from no angle or whatsoever. We have been there, and you will see someone drop out from school, go to, because he has resources in his heart, go to political class from this side, they pick him up. A poor man child like me, I have been in school for 20 years, and I have graduated 2010. 20 years, and each recruitment this portal I've entered, you will see that somebody will be 80 years, 90 years. So there is no job for a common man. People are suffering, seriously. There must be equity and justice. People should be given what they belong to.
Okay.
And that is what I would contribute. Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.
Well, thank you very much, Barnabas. And, well, we can understand your pain there. Barnabas is saying a lot of this has to do with failure of governance or bad governance. Well, yes, in the next few minutes we still have on the program, let's look at not the strategies really, but ways and means to put an end to this. Lakurawa today may not pose the kind of threat that Boko Haram did to Nigeria, because it's been identified early enough, I can say, and efforts are on to rout the terrorists out. However, from the past experience, we must begin to look at what if another group rises? There's such a thing as people who, once they have seen what has happened before, then they think, well, if they can do it, then we can also do it. So I'm looking at the future, what can be done to ensure that groups like this do not spring up on a regular basis.
Thank you very much. I think our best approach to solving the problem rests squarely in a joint multi-agency and whole-of-society approach in addressing it. Joint in the sense that all the services must come together, all the MDAs, and then the whole-of-society approach, political establishments, traditional institutions, average Nigerians, everybody have a role to play. Within that framework, our chances of solving the immediate problem of Lakurawa and also preventing the emergency of such groups is much more brighter. Now, having said that, I think we also need to look at the issue of governance at the local level. Nature abhors a vacuum. When there is a vacuum at a very low level, then somebody wants to fill in that gap. So, but if we have government presence at the remotest villages and communities, our chances is higher. Second issue is definitely kinetic operations, which is already ongoing, is part of the solution. And not just kinetic operations, joint and decisive operations to rout these elements, which will happen very soon. That is also ongoing. It's also a solution to it. We also need to look at issues of our border management and border security. Again, it's tied to solving the problem. It's tied to having an enduring solution to it. So again, we need to invest in border management, both in terms of physical security, in terms of technology, using drones, long-range cameras, to secure our borders, to make sure that people that have no business coming in completely stay out. Community resilience. I'm happy the strength of the police was brought into focus. Are they enough to solve the problem? It's not just the police. Even the armed forces, even the other MDAs, the strengths are not enough vis-a-vis the size of our territory. So there will definitely be need to increase and develop the resilience of local communities. Resilience in the sense that they need to be organized in such a way that at least if the worst comes to the worst, they should be able to hold out and then call for support. That can also help us in terms of having an enduring solution to the problem.
All right, thank you so much. DIG, well, getting the people to trust security agencies. We always hear that once the communities are aware and alert, they can always draw the attention of security agencies to these matters when they begin to feel that some strange happenings are occurring. But now you have the challenge of the trust deficit, getting the people to be on the same side with the security agencies and state actors. What's the best way?
Thank you, Cyril.
Right.
For us to have mutual trust and symbiotic relationship and to close that gap between the community and the officers working or serving in such communities, a lot of things had been identified and they have been tackled. Because one, minus that trust and mutual respect and mutual relationship, once you couldn't gain the trust of the community and built in confidence that they can be able to now give you information that you now analyze and turn into intelligence, then your human intel will be weak. But before I go into that in an in-depth study on it or let you know how and the best way to go about it, which is already identified and we're on the right path, I want to go back to Oga General Temlong, what he has said. There is inadequate manpower and we need more boots. On this juncture, I would like to appreciate Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for his support as he came into power last year. He had already approved part of police reform, recruitment of 10,000 policemen. Currently, they are on training, 10,000 policemen. So this is additional boots. So all those wastages, all those retirement people who died on active service and all those things have been replaced. Additionally, again, the good news is he had not only approved 10,000, but he had approved, after even this one, there is additional 10,000. After that one, again, there is additional 10,000. They will train in batches and will be filling the void. Now, when we come back to this issue of trust and mutual relationship and building in confidence, part of the things identified is go back to what had happened in Borno, Yobe, that is Northeast. Part of the lessons learned is what made us to now quickly take a step, and instead of us to wait and be reactive, we are now being proactive, looking at things strategically, jointly as a team, and the synergy is very robust, and we are now adding all our forces in one pulse, both manpower, equipment, and resources, to make sure that Nigeria is a country we tackle these issues identified of Lakra head on and all other issues in northwestern Nigeria. So that is part of the lessons learned. Additionally, again, if you remember the former president who says see something and say something, is part of it that made us now to do what we call a early warning system and early warning signal. It's part of it that made us now to realize that, look, another group had reared its heads. So we shouldn't allow it to grow to such an extent that we cannot be able to manage the menace. And we're on course, and we are going to do it. Now, the issue of trust and confidence and building symbiotic relationship with the community is, let me go back to what Ejiofor has said. Issue of local knowledge, issue of people from that same enclave, so that they have the same dialect, issue of norms, value, and culture. Those had been identified. That is why all those recruits that are now being trained, they are now being sent back to their own local governments. They cannot be now did as we used to do before, which is still going to be done because it's a federal police. They will still be sent out, but till after 13 years. Now, with those staying those years, then in a particular bit, then attending ceremonies, both good and sympathizing where it is the other way around, congratulatory messages where it is the other way around. It made us now, the policemen that are there, build those relationship, partnership, and mutual trust to the extent that those particular enclaves you see, when they come to the police station, they will say they have come to complain or they have come to set an issue. Where is Sergeant so-so-so or Corporal so-so-so? When they say, no, I'm a policeman, you say, no. We have our own policeman who is our own brother, who is our own person, who listens to us, who attend our ceremonies, both the one that are deaf and equally congratulatory one. So with that, we have been getting human intel, and it's yielding result, and it's making us go forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And we go back to Jos now, and General Temlong, your closing thoughts on this program as we begin to wind down.
Well, thank you very much, Cyril. I want to commend those who are in the studios too for their comments. One important thing that I've been saying, which I'll continue to say, is that when you say security is everybody's business, you want an all-society approach. How is the society ready to provide those things? Have you had any security awareness training for them? Has there been any capacity building for them at that level to know how they fit into these things? I've asked the question, I've been here, Ejiofor is smiling, but I know that even the state governors now, if you ask how many of them have seen a copy of the national security strategy, the counter-terrorism strategy, the national defense policy, and the rest, how many of them have seen it? How many of them have even domesticated it to their states? They have not. So the whole thing is that the federal is doing what they are trying to do, but it's not cascading down, and that is why you will not feel the effects. The whole problem lies from the states to the local governments. And once we're able to get them properly into the scheme of things and they know what they are supposed to do, and they get the population to do what they're supposed to do, we'll be able to succeed. But on the whole, I think for us, is that, like Sun Tzu said, to subdue the enemy without firing a shot is the acme of skill. And I think that's what we need to do in asymmetric warfare, more of soft power and less of hard power, more of governance and less presence of hard power, and you will see what will happen. Thank you very much, Cyril.
All right, we'd like to thank you very much. General Jonathan Temlong joined us via Zoom from Jos. We thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you on these platforms. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always my pleasure, Cyril. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Well, back here, Mr. Ejiofor again.
Yeah, it's cheering to hear from the DIG that when the people finish their training, they'll be posted. They don't need to be posted to their own local government, but they can be posted within the same geopolitical zone where there's this language understanding. In addition to that, because like we said, General Temlong said here, security is everybody's business. And everybody's business is nobody's business. So we need to mobilize the communities. Take, for instance, what is happening in Sokoto now. In most of these areas, there's no communication. These Lakorawas and all, they use their to riot because there's no coverage of communication between the governments. So at the local government level, we need a mobilization of the people. The traditional rulers, whether they are sincere or not, need to be reminded of their responsibilities to government and to the people. And by so doing, nothing stops you at a local government level if they are only on ground, the chairman of the local government. Call 1 or 2 persons from each community to the local government headquarters. Educate them on security consciousness, their responsibilities to government. But at the same time, the government must also discharge a responsibility to the people. That's the only way we can go. And this communication issue is very, very critical because most of these areas are not covered by communication. So at different levels, we must begin from the grassroots. There's no presence of governance in these areas, and we must emphasize that governance should go to I sympathize with the police. Each time I discuss the issues, my heart bleeds because you come to some stations, only one person, General said it here, General Tenlong, only one civil defense, one policeman in his community. You go to some divisions, you ask somebody, they tell you cannot leave station because there's nobody there. So we need to, and that brings me to the issue of this working relationship between the Police Service Commission and the police management. The former president, General Muhammad Buhari, did instruct that for every year they should recognize and they should recruit 10,000 policemen. Did that happen under his government? No, because of problem between Police Service Commission and police management. But now that everybody is working together, I think we're making progress. And there's also need for all the security agencies, like the president emphasized, that there's need for everybody to work together instead of working in silos.
All right, so thank you very much. And so on that note, we'll conclude this program. Thank you very much, Mr. Michael Joffo, former Director of the Department of State Services, the DSS. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And let me also say a big thank you to Major General Emeka Onumajuru, Chief of Defense Training and Operations, Defense Headquarters. Thank you for being part of this. And also to Deputy Inspector General of Police, Dasuki Dambapa Galadanchi, MNI, DIG Force Intelligence Department, Force Headquarters. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Cyril.
All right. And for all those who joined us on this conversation, we also thank you for being part of it and giving us part of your suggestions on the way forward. We thank you for being with us. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Bye for now.